we will be opening in February 6 and until June. So I have here together with me Nawar Al-Qassimi. She's the vice president, vice director of the Sharjah Art Foundation. And then we have also Rossella Biscotti, one of the participating artists for the next Sharjah Biennale 16 to carry. And I want to introduce myself. I'm Alia Swastika. I'm part of curatorial team for the Sharjah Biennale 16. Together with other 4 curators, we have Amal Khalaf, she's now in London, and then Natasha Jinwala from India, and then we have also Zainab Oz and Megan Karel Tamati from New Zealand. Maybe many of you already read our recent announcement of the theme of the title, that is to carry, which I will discuss more later on. So we are very excited to embrace this working together of the 5 curators from different part of the world, from different contexts, and working with almost 140 artists with more than 80 commissions. So it's quite a big job, big task for us, and the space will be spread through 5 different venues across Sharjah. So we will welcoming you, and Nawar will introduce the history of Sharjah Biennial and how Sharjah become very important hub for not only the global art world, but I think particularly how Sharjah pay attention, like focusing as well to the connection with Asia. So please, I give the floor to you, Nawar.
Thank you, Alia. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Before I start, I wanted to say that I don't know how a lot of people feel, but for many of us, it's been quite disorienting to be here attending fairs and openings while there's so many horrific atrocities happening in our part of the world. And I think it's important that while we wake up and we come to these places, we also realize how privileged we are and remember that it's important for us to continue to speak up about what's happening at a time while many artists, institutions, and curators are being silenced. As people working in institutions, it's important that we give our spaces to artists who don't have opportunities to speak elsewhere, and that we continue to give artists platforms, whether it's through our exhibitions, through publishing, or through different forms of work that we do. And within that sentiment, I mean, once Alia reads the statement of To Carry, we all found that it was very important and fitting to what's happening today. And it's important for us to always continue to do the work that we do and do it together. And for us, the foundation, Sharjah Art Foundation, is a place where many people come together and have been for many years. Sharjah is a port city. It's a place historically where many people have connected, passed through, or traveled. So it has a very rich history. And our institution is an institution that came out of a biennial. So while our institution has been running Sharjah Art Foundation has been running the biennial for many years, we came out of a small exhibition that was being put together by local artists from all over the UAE who came together to work on exhibition making. And the government noticed this activity. And there's a very, very funny story of a local artist called Ahmed Al-Ansari who created a really famous painting called Ash-Shahat, the beggar, and walked around the souks of Sharjah asking for money so that they could fund their first exhibition. And a journalist put it on the front page of the newspaper, and the ruler of Sharjah saw it and said, "Why are you asking for money for culture? This is what we do. We'll fund you, we'll support you." And so the Emirates Fine Art Society was founded, and the artists were given grants and began creating annual exhibitions, which then brought about the realization of the first Sharjah Biennale. So the work that we've been doing has really been a result of many people coming together. We're a public organization, but we're also very connected to our communities, connected to artists, connected to the place that we're in, as you'll see in some of the images. Place and spaces are very important for the work that we do. And all of our different projects and activities have really come out of conversations, of people doing things together. It's very grassroots and grounds up, and it's a very exciting way. It's a very exciting way of working with the spaces that we have. So a lot of our projects take part in these open squares, public squares. We're a very community-oriented organization. So there's so much public work. Our biggest audiences are our local communities, families, children. So a lot of the works really speak to the audiences around us. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. And as an organization, we've been supporting and commissioning artists for a very long time. So this is maybe one of our biggest, or one of the big projects that we've done. And this work is by John Akomfra and was commissioned by Sharjah Art Foundation with Hartwig and the Polygreen PCAI in Greece and the Arts Council England. So the way that we often work is that we'll collaborate with different institutions and projects, and really, rather than want to premiere something for ourselves and be, have the first or the biggest kind of project, we'll often work with many other partners, and really to be able to support artists to make large-scale projects and installations that get to travel and that get to be seen by many different people. So for us, it's really important, and something that we do a lot, that we've been doing a lot in recent years, is co-commissioning and co-producing and collaborating with different institutions. So for many of the projects that you will see in the next biennial, you may also see elsewhere in other places. And that's something that we're very proud of. And I think it's important that we continue to do this kind of work. And this is, of course, Hajra Wahid's hum, which was one of the prize winners for the last Sharjah Biennial. And Hajra is an artist that we've also worked with for quite some time. And this is Basil Abbas and Rawan Abu Rahmi's project that was co-commissioned with PCAI as well. So aside from exhibitions and aside from the exhibitions and projects that we do, we also do a lot of performance in the biennial, and we work with a lot of different spaces. We run a residency year-round. We co-commission, co-produce, and we also have artist studios. So Sharjah really is a place where people not only come together, but where they also create. And of course, this is one of our residency spaces. It's called the Hamariya Studios, and it is built on the former footprint of an old souk in Hamriya, which is a small town which is a small town in Sharjah. And the old souk obviously no longer exists, but the building and the studios were built on the footprint. And until today, when people come and visit, some of the residents of the town say that it feels exactly like it did when they were children and when they were growing up. So it's really important for us that all of our spaces, or the majority of our spaces, have some kind of connection to the land, connection to the history of the place, and that rather than build shiny new buildings, we repurpose or reconstruct or rehabilitate the existing buildings. This is a site-specific work by Imran Qureshi that also won the Biennial Prize in 2011. And this is the Kalba Ice Factory, which is, well, there's a new extension on an existing building, and this building was built in the 70s. It's a former, it was a factory for fish feeds, and it was built very close to a mangrove in the 70s. And as soon as they built it, they realized how bad it would be for the environment, so it never operated. It just became this shell of a building, and fishermen used it to store ice, so it became known as the Ice Factory. And it's kind of it's a little bit of a landmark in Kalba. So Kalba is a small fishing village on the east coast of Sharjah, but it's also by the mountains, and across the Indian Ocean, and you can see there's a protected mangrove site around it. So when we were looking at spaces in Kalba, we thought, why don't we use the factory? So we used it 1 year. In Unjiju's biennial, she commissioned Adrian Villarrojas to do a really immersive site-specific installation in that space. And from then on, we kind of revived the building, which was sort of like this shell that was just sitting there in the city, this empty shell. We revived the building. We used it kind of in its original state, and then worked with architects to kind of redo it a little bit and create an extension. So now it's also a residency space. There's a cafe, and it's become kind of also a gathering place for the local community. And last year we had Dora Salcedo's I'm sure a lot of people have seen this image, very, very well known, commission for Kalba. So a lot of the installations and projects that you'll see are quite immersive. They really respond to the land or to the space. And our spaces are very interesting. This is a school from the 50s where we held the March meeting. And the March meeting is one of our annual conferences, and it's a really important time for gathering. And it really brings a lot of people from different parts of the world together. And we've been doing the March meeting since 2008, and it's become, I think, one of the most important conferences that we do today. And this was thank you. This image was a performance by Shay Mohammed. I don't know if a lot of people know her, but she's a wonderful, wonderful artist, and did a performance, Palestinian artist, did a performance called Food and Law around food and the idea of coming together and eating and community building, which was really beautiful. And this was a project by Tanya.
No, Elian Wapista.
Sorry?
I think this is Elian Wapista.
Is it?
It's Alia.
It's Alia, okay. Not Tanya. Okay.
Not Tanya.
So this is the Al Jubail market, which is also an old souk from the 70s in Sharjah that's been repurposed. And of course, we also have performances. We had Tinari Wan last year in Ramadan. We took over the Cultural Palace, which is usually just for formal theater. And when we were kids, it was where you saw ballet and opera. And last year in Ramadan, we took it over with Tinari Wan. It was the most incredible experience. And we've had also artists like Faustin, and we do film screenings. So we're very much about using different spaces in the city as well for the biennial to come together. And we've worked with many different curators in the past. I mean, there's a focus on curators from Asia in this presentation because of the fair and where we are today. But we worked with Yuka Hasegawa for Sharjah Biennale in 2013. So this is one of the projects that she did. And we also screened camps from Gulf to Gulf to Gulf that year. I don't know if a lot of people know that film, but it's a brilliant film. And it was one of the most, I think, popular screening programs that we've done. The film talks about the sailors. So we're situated in the old city, we're situated next to the port. So a lot of sailors and people who work in the market were part of a film that camp shot, I think it was in 2008.
Okay.
Camp, they shot the film. They made the film. And then this was in 2013. So when we screened the film, a lot of people many years later would come back and point out friends or family members or people they knew that were in this film. And the film continues. I mean, we had an exhibition of camps a couple of years ago and put parts of that project, and it was like the most popular space because a lot of people remembered it and I guess talked to each other about it. So it was really great. Unjiju also curated one of our past biennials. You can see a work of Haegyu Yang here. Unju is also another artist, another curator that we've worked with for a long time now. And of course, Tara Shinoda's installation at Beit Abdurrahim. We've also worked with Nikhil Chopra. This is a really beautiful work that he did. He was in residency in Sharjah for a long time, spent some time in an old house in Beit Shamsi across the water, across the port, and then also spent a lot of time in the desert and made these beautiful drawings for the biennial. And then there was a public procession that he did, or a performance, but also procession across the water in Sharjah. And it was, I think, one of the most memorable moments for a lot of people who had witnessed that project. Zoe Butt also was one of the co-curators of our biennial in Sharjah, Biennial 14. Sorry, it's really hard to see. This is also a work a lot of people may have seen by Tuan Andrew Nguyen, and it was one of the projects that we had co-commissioned along with the SF MoMA. And of course, Khadim Ali's mural, which was also one of, I think, the most prominent works in that biennial. And lastly, Amar Kanwar's Peacock's Graveyard was a really important work that we commissioned for the last biennial. And it was commissioned also with M+, who have acquired the work, and it's now on view. I think it's still on view at M+. And it's, I think, one of the most successful examples of working with people in different regions, co-commissioning projects together and giving artists work the visibility and the opportunity to travel to different places. This work was shown in Al Zaid in a shed. Al Zaid is a farming town. And we showed the work in a little shed, and then in M+, it was shown in a completely different context inside the museum. But it's a brilliant work, and it was a really great opportunity to be able to do this work. We have an MOU with M+ now, and we have a long-term relationship and are hoping to continue to commission more works and to produce more works with other artists. And I'm going to pass it over to Alia. Maybe Alia is going to introduce the theme of next biennial and read the curatorial statement, or one part of the curatorial statement.
Thank you, Nawar. Thank you also for reminding us our privilege to be here, and how this kind of art events should be also a place for us, a space for us to hold our solidarities and like standing our positions in very complex political situations today. So I think for the next Sharjah Biennial 16th also, we really depart on this very particular and complex situation of making exhibition of today situation. I think our Sharjah Biennial become very special because it happened in very precarious time, and in many different parts of the world we see these conflicts and accelerating of like disparities within society. And also still we have to overcome the situation post-pandemic, I think, in a way that is also reminding us of our closeness to the local context, but at the same time also thinking about the global narrative. So for us, 5 of us working together, it's really trying to embrace like all those different and like varieties of our local situations, but at the same time really thinking what a biennials can do in this time of conflicts, in this time of disparities, how we can always advocate or creating the space for like our friend that is really, or like artists, curators, and all the social group that is now really threatened by the political situations. And we see it's not only looking specific geopolitical situations, but everywhere, even in Asia, we really see how artists struggle with the freedom of expression today. So for us, like working together, like it's quite special. I think this is the first time Sharjah have like quite big group of curators working together. It's really a place, at least like an effort for us also to give the voice for this very marginalized or forgotten histories and like small narrative that actually is always very important in our daily life, but then most of the time it was repressed by the dominant narrative. So in the end, after almost a year of working together, many discussions, like presenting each other ideas, we somehow agreed on one term that can represent, or it's really illustrate the way we were working together and all different narratives and different themes that we are each interested with. So we announced last month, was it like 2 weeks ago, the title of our exhibition, To Carry. And I would like to read, like we have long list of what is the to carry means of making exhibition today, and what is the to carry in our situation of today. So you can see here, to carry a home, to carry a history, to carry a trade, to carry a wound, to carry equatorial heat, to carry resistance, to carry a library of redacted documents, to carry rupture, to carry tempo, to carry chains, to carry songs, to carry on, to carry land, to carry the language of the inner soul, to carry new formations, to carry the embrace of a river current, to carry sisterhood of the communal connection, to carry the race of a morning without fear. So we bring together all the things that for us something that is very familiar, but we try to embrace also something we feel like we are stranger to. So I think to carry is really for us a bridge of understanding different complexities of our society today. So many of us, we are interested to like issues of, as you see, we are 5 women working together. So for us, it's also important to give the strong voice of women's narrator, women's writer, women's artists, or like many of our project really much focus on female perspective, female voice, and to see how feminism somehow being set up as a perspective. It's not a theme, but it's always the spirit of our working together. And many also of our project really based on like different local communities in many different contexts. So for example, like I work with many of women collective in some islands in Indonesia. So I invited some artists from different countries to come together, and we did like travel adventure residency to this island, working with women who still like practicing the weaving as part of everyday life, and thinking how the practice of weaving is not only making the product, but it's really sharing the experience, embedded memory, embedded knowledge about their society. And yeah, many also, of course, we have many artists trying to bridge their own localities with what is happening in Sharjah. So most of the time, what I really like about Sharjah is how they created the space for different history and transnational connectivities to be somehow like jointed in Sharjah. So we have some artists that working with specific installations and specific narrative that connect to the history of Sharjah, or how, as mentioned by Nawar before, Sharjah is very strong with the maritime culture, with the history of global trade coming from different ports, and the fishing culture. So for us, it's very interesting and important to embrace all these different narrative that connected to local context in Sharjah and somehow expanding to different, so the local situation where the artists come from. So, for example, this is the project by Wo Manifesto. Wo Manifesto is a collective female artists actually come from different part of the world. There are some European, Australian, but most of them they're Asian artists who were in mid of 1990s, so around 1995, they came together and they did like different projects in Thailand. So I think it's important to look into the historical aspect also of collectivity in, as you know now, the idea or the concept of art collective or the collectivity in the contemporary art become very important after the documenta. But I think we can also look at like the different forms of collective, not like collective as a form, but as a method. So I think the manifesto really give us also historical trace on how all women artists from Southeast Asia and other part of the world at that time joined together for making collaboration also with the society, the community. So for Sharjah, they prepare a big collaboration with different communities. So they did workshop with women community in Bangkok, in India, I think in Baroda, and then also in Germany. Now in Lahore, they just open also one collaboration work in Lahore, and we will do also the closing of this project will be done with the weaving female group in Sharjah. And then this is the one that I mentioned before. This is I invited 3 artists, Gunester Kol from Istanbul, and then Yen Yam Sum from Malaysia, and Salima Hakim from Jakarta. And we travel across the area in Indonesia that is really known for the weaving culture. So we went to one village to another for 2 weeks. We moved around into different villages, and then we did workshop with the community there. And also we learned how the practice of weaving very connected, not only as an object making, but really much is about spirituality, it's about ritual, it's about how you connected to the ancestor. And nowadays also it became a form of resistance, because many of their landscapes somehow damaged or destroyed by the industrializations or the development of physical infrastructure. So we found also the story where women, they came to the mountain, the Rocky Mountain in this island, and they stayed there for 1 month to resist the establishment of a factory. So for us, this is very interesting to learn from a different generation of women, and what is how can we see weaving also as a political tools for our resistance. But then the experience is so beautiful. They like all these women always welcoming us very warmly, singing together, cooking together. So yeah, it's very memorable research project as well. Next. And this is, as I mentioned before, for me, Sharjah is always very important, because bringing artists from different part of the world to give like another perspective, another story about Sharjah. So this is artist from Thailand, Prachaya Pintong, where initially his project started from his interest to solar panel industry, because as we know, like Emirate always known as the biggest producer of oil around that area, lots of oil, and the oil become the currency of these countries, and then they got quite become one of the most powerful economic in the world because of the oil. And today, with the ecological crisis, many of us are shifting from the oil or the fossil energy to more sustainable energy. And then, of course, in the UAE, they have like lots of sun, always very sunny. So they develop many sites or industry for the solar panel energy. So he started with research about that, but at the same time looking at different ecological contexts in Emirates and found how the problem of coral bleaching or the problem of the damage in the ocean is also quite urgent in Emirates. And in the end, we did lots of research about coral that later on in the exhibition you can see how solar panel and the coral will be connected. I cannot say now because it has to be something that you experience there. So this is the process where we try to take out the dead coral from the heritage building in Sharjah, and we want to give a new life to these dead corals. Next one. This is a project by Shubigiro that actually was produced by the Rockban Museum of Art in Shanghai. And many of the curator also interested to the idea of the embodied knowledge and how the work of curator, like us as curator, is actually also is about caring or to care. And Subigi's project showing very interesting research, very important research, where I think mostly is about the during the Armenian genocide, and how the women in the community, they become the main preserver or protector of the like the community knowledge. So she did lots of research and recording the experience of all these women in preserving and protecting the manuscript around that area. And in Sharjah, there is this area called Calligraphy Square, for example, and there will be many of project also thinking about what is the meaning of local knowledge today, and what is the how we use the language. So because manuscript and then language, and then we try to look at the political aspect of the language. So there will be lots of project also rethinking about language and collective identity, and how language also become the site of somehow like evoking collective memory. So what else? I think now maybe a bit more personal sense of how I get connected to Sharjah. I think for me, it's a very big honor to be working in this Sharjah Biennale 16 together with 4 colleagues that I've been adored. Like some of us we know together for quite a long time, even though not really formally working together. But I think working in Sharjah is, of course, become one of our dream, because each of us has very long connection with Sharjah. I think I started to came to Sharjah in 2013. It was during the UCO Biennial, and it was the opening of the new arts area, right? So it's really like very memorable, because it's very different from the other projects in different biennials in the world. Usually you come to big warehouse, big hall, but in Sharjah, somehow you are embracing like smaller local heritage, but also the local situation itself, that outside of the building in the arts area, you enter to like a market. Also there is also the waterfront area, which you see also different boats, and I think the city itself is very interesting. So since then, since 2013, I really fell in love with Sharjah, not only as a city with all these physical aspect, but also the history and the connection. And I feel like, yeah, the arts that I see there is really it's always like calling me to go back to Sharjah. So it's almost every 2 years I came. I think I only miss 1 or 2 editions after 2013. So yeah, I think to be working with now being part of the working team in Sharjah and to be connected with different communities across the Emirates become very important experience also for me as a curator. So for example, I came also across community of farmer in Sharjah that they try to grow, like we always think that in Emirates it's always desert. You don't have anything to grow. It's just like, yeah, very, very impossible to make like farming agriculture area. But then I just visited like quite big land, like maybe more than 5,000 meter square farming area where this local farmer, they grew like banana, papaya, mango even. So it's quite amazing to see all these things happening in Sharjah. And we invited a collective from India to think about this farming culture and how many of the Indian workers in Sharjah actually they left their land, they left the farming area, and how they evoking this memory of land, of farming, of agriculture when they come to Sharjah. So lots of possibility, and this project has introduced me to many different communities across the Emirate that is really opening my mind about like the differences and diversity of the Emirates, that when we look at from the distance, it's always like very homogeneous society, but then it's very rich with history, with different kind of anthropological context today. So that's why also I invite Rossella. So I've been knowing Rossella's work, following Rossella's work for quite a while. And then one of the particular project that I remember, Rossella visited Indonesia and doing residency in Singapore, where she kind of like, she will telling the story by yourself later on, but there is this project about the rubber plantation that is very connected to one of the canon historical literature of Indonesia written by Pramudia Anantatur. So I think what is interesting about Sharjah is the possibility to bring artists from different contexts and creating a new narrative that connected to the local situation in Sharjah. So yeah, maybe Rossella can start it to, maybe you can share with us how do you started your interest to discuss the history of Asia, especially you live in the Netherlands, where for Indonesia and Netherlands itself, the connection that built by during the colonial period somehow still quite problematic to be discussed today in the context of the Netherlands. And when you came to Indonesia, then you started to look at this issue like more deeply. There is the plantation, like the plantation also become important part of the history of colonialism in Indonesia, and also it become the starting point of the history of slavery, for example, and then become the narrative of global trade during the colonial period. So how do you start this project about the rubber plantations, and how do you find Pramudia Anantatur, for example? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alia. Thank you, Nawar, also for this heartwarming statement of solidarity and privilege. And it's beautiful to be here and be invited in to the Sharjah 16 Biennial with this wonderful curator. I was really amazed when the statement came out, and also like to see how much also me as an artist have been working around these topics, but how you put it together in these words. And these words really floats and come along a long way for us, and I think for many people. So it's connecting histories, connecting lands. So to come to your question, I have a series of works, which is I usually call rubber works, which are the ones that Alia was once mentioning about. And it's maybe I'll take it in a specific way. There is a story that is very long around it. And of course, as an Italian, living in Netherlands primarily, and also being sometimes in Brussels, I have been confronted, but also like with the colonial history, Dutch colonial history, through archives, and then of course by traveling to Indonesia a few times and having many friends, which always help, and friends artists that carry you along within the stories, histories, but also like within contemporary, what is important to talk about now. I came along some of the story, and through two types of research. One was botanical research. So again, we come with this idea on land, and especially one particular location, which is the Bogor Botanical Garden in Bogor in Indonesia, where it was it was an experimental garden for Netherlands, for Dutch, in which they brought seeds, and they were seeing how do they can create big plantation, let's say cassava, but also like how more specific plants from Indonesia, which are very precious, like for example, Lemorphophallus, gigantic flower that grows that comes out every 8 years. Probably you have seen all other Rafflesia, how if they can be exported to Europe and become sort of events flower. And so I was looking into this botanical import and export, and that's where the rubber, the material, come from. And then the history of is very interesting of this book of Pramudia Nantatur. He wrote these 4 books, Baro Quartet. He didn't write them in the highland of Baro, but he was imprisoned in the area of Baro, and he narrated them to his fellow prisoners. So the research actually was done partially also in Netherlands with the archive, and then it's like it came almost as an oral history. So again, the connection with this way of working for me was very close. My work, I'm very interested in resurfacing some of the not official history, but more history from people, and history of resistance, women history, and but also, let's say, history that comes from material, from land. So I will reconnect to this. To be very brief, in 4 books of Pramudia Nantatur, he narrates a particular history of one man. He's a journalist, and he's a native of what is now Indonesia or Java. He's a noble Javanese man, and then he's in Dutch school, and then at a certain point he started to realize all the injustice and colonialism and everything people go through, and he starts to publish a newspaper, and also be very active. Within these 4 books, he meets many women. So what I did is extracting the stories of these women and portray them through rubber portraits. We have no images of it, but what I can say is like the connection in between the stories of these women and the material is for me very important, because I tell maybe the story of Surati, which is a story I particularly love. She's a woman from the countryside of Java, and a young woman, probably teenager, and her father works as an accountant in a sugar plantation. So again, the theme of plantation and sugar and land, and the Dutch manager of this plantation asked this man for his daughter to be his concubine. And we meet her already in the second or third book, when we know already that being a concubine, it means also have no rights. So just be there pleasing the man, but have no rights for herself, have no rights for the future children, and also no property, nothing, except your batiks and your jewelry. That's are the only property women could carry. And but then she has to go, and she says to the father, "Leave me, I will go on my own." She packs her batik clothes, and then she goes in a place where that is actually infected by smallpox. And there she lays with a dead body. She gets infected. She dresses well. She makeups. She goes to this manager, and she creates an epidemic. Everybody, he dies. She stays deformed, but she's free. So it's these very strong stories of somehow resistance also through your own body, and which I portray through also batik drawing that are embedded in the rubber. I'll go back to the rubber because I think it's important. I decided to use rubber, and very particular rubber that is from a plantation in Sumatra, which is the first plantation that has been founded in 1909 by a Belgian entrepreneur, which took seeds from Congo. And this is the first plantation that has been made in Asia. And after that, now is a big multinational, it's called Socfin. After that, it expanded, and of course, then it did the oil palms plantation, and now is in genetic manipulated seeds. So for me, it was important to connect, and not only to talk about the story of the woman, but to connect this transnational history, and also of course, the rubber, it comes from Brazil. So there is a line that crosses various countries, and it's a line not only in which this rubber travels and arrives to Congo. And as we know, Congo has been, rubber plantation in Congo has been really like a site of extreme violence with the Leopold II, but then and also the Belgian Congo plantation system, and then the seeds travel again to Indonesia, and then they are again somehow creating a new multinational. So this is a bit the story of these rubber works. I don't know if there is time maybe to get into Sharjah, which is the new project, of course.
Yeah. So from the story of how, as you hear from Rossella, very beautiful, but also quite full of painful during the history of the rubber industry across not only Indonesia, many places also in Africa, for example. I'm interested to look at how these different objects, like the commodities during the colonial period, and how they transform into a different narrative and materiality. So I saw many of Rossella's work really using like lots of different materialities, and also to look at the history of the industry in the Emirates. So that's why I wanted also to invite Rossella to develop like a new project, like looking into like different industry, different commodities in the Emirates. So we went to like some places, so maybe you can also share stories how you did the research in Emirates, and how you shape somehow your concept for the Sharjah works that is coming from your research.
Yeah. So yes, so we did some site visit. I mean, for me, it's very important to connect with places where I'm invited and I'm going to show the work. Somehow, of course, I had been working already on the idea of extraction, and with some works, some works also, some research done in Sharjah. It already entered my work, for example, now in a artwork, in a big installation that is on show at Castello di Rivoli called Circulations, where I repurpose pipelines and tubes that are made for gas and oil, and somehow I queer them, I twist them, I let them become a sort of organism, or let's say the pipeline is cut with holes and incision that are more from that I took, and I was inspired to looking by buildings, mud buildings, and now they have this cut to have the circulation of air. So there is a lot of this idea of breathing. And within, for example, the Emirates, we visited a very beautiful location that is a Sabka, and it's, for me, it's a salt lake formation, and for me it was very interesting. Also, I have been working a lot in Port City. I also come from a fisherman town, so I have been also looking in how environments are connected, and how in the Sabka is so this salt lake formation, how this salinity comes out from the floor, and then through years, I think the one, for example, in Abu Dhabi is 7,000 years old, it creates formation. And I have been very interested in this idea of surfaces, so how things come and emerge, and maybe that's a very abstract connection also, how stories are told, and then story through materials. So for the Sharjah project, I will have part of this circulation artwork that it will be again repurposed and rechanged for a specific building in Sharjah Art Foundation. But I also made a project inviting a ceramist, a French-Palestinian ceramist, Maya Beiruti, to work with specific material we collected. So there is also the sand from the desert of Sharjah we visited. There is salt, mud salt. There are ashes that are very important to me, and I have been collecting ashes various times, actually starting in Malaysia from a palm plantation. And ashes are very important as a material, because in a way they are the end of the plant. They are really like when everything burns, but they are so rich on minerals. And we have been using this material to make glazes and ceramic. So for me, it was very important, again, this idea of land and this idea of carrying, how you transform material. And this glazing that we made, somehow yesterday I was thinking about, because I was like, okay, how can I describe this? And when you collect sand and you make a sculpture or something in sand, the material is still there and you see it. So the rubber is from inside, so there is already a process in it. When you go to the microscope as a scientist, you see the molecules. But what we did is like to make the material visualize itself by eating it. So by process this material just through heat, by mingle it and crossing it, the material show itself in glazing. So it's a sort of glass. Again, in this process, I was very interested in the idea of glass. Glass, for example, it's made of sand and soda, and was made mainly in the whole peninsula, Arabian Peninsula. It was made in Egypt, it was made on the river of Palestine, in a lot of glass, for example, of the Roman Empire. We think because they are shaped maybe in the Roman Empire, but they are made somewhere else. And is a material of recycling. This idea of recycling for me is also very important, because in a way it kind of gets deep, and because you can look at it from the external point of view, but then what does it carry, or what does it tell? So for me, the idea of carrying is very much related with narration. How does something narrates through the material? What does it carry? Something that surface. Also, like, I mean, we always think of extraction and oil, but oil is something incredibly precious. It comes from years and years of formation. So what does this actual oil telling us, and not only like what is around it? So maybe a bit abstract, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rossella, to sharing with us how you're like from European community doing research in Asia, but then also at the same time, I think it's important to always like self-reflect to how the history is being written. So I think the example from Pramudia Anantatur is very important to be underlined here, how the colonial history is being written in the language of the the people themselves who experience that. So I recommend you to read further this novel. It's already translated to more than 30 languages. He's one of the most important writer in Indonesia. So to give like more context to what has been told by Rossella. So thank you everyone for joining us in these conversations. I hope that what we have shared here give you a little bit clue of what will you see in Sharjah. So we are welcoming you to join us in our opening February 6th, and yeah, to carry our different memories, to carry our solidarities, to carry our like maybe our anxious collectivity also with us. Thank you very much, and yeah, see you in Sharjah. Thank you. Applause for Nawar and Rossella. Thank you, Asia Now, for giving us the space to share with you all.